All right. Thank you guys so much. Welcome back to another episode of Modern Day Prophets. I'm Dustin, founder of One Tribe Rising, and I am so excited to have this guest here. She came across my feed I want to say about a month ago, and I've just been following her ever since, just because I love dancing and I just love everything that she stands for. And so I took a shot. I reached out to her through email and she ended up responding. And I am so honored to be able to introduce Misty Tripoli, founder of BodyGroove, and just to hear her story and how she's managed to be such a presence on social media, and just hearing about her mission and what she's come through. So Misty, thank you so much for being here. I'm honored to have you on, and I can't wait to hear your story from your perspective.
Well, thank you. And thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure when I get to share my story, especially if it impacts people, because I have a feeling that a lot of people can relate to my story.
Yeah, yeah. So why don't you tell people a little bit? Right now, you're currently in Mexico. From what I understand, you've had some big movements in your life as far as packing up and changing your whole world. So just give the audience a little bit of what your background is and what your story is, and kind of how you landed into this.
Well, how I got to where I am now. Well, it's wild, and I'll give you the cliff notes of it, but and hopefully share the details that are the most impactful
Yeah.
for you and your audience. But I would have to say, basically, like, dance is my language. Dance is my soul. And I literally danced out of my mother's vagina into the world and have not stopped since. But being one of 7 children and my mom was a single parent, I never had dance lessons or any formal training at all, which ended up being a blessing, because I didn't have any rules I had to break or things I had to unlearn, as far as that goes. But just like everyone kind of born into the American dream family, whatever it might be, I just kind of followed. I was born in Salt Lake City, Utah. I was raised Mormon, and I was quite a devout Mormon. I was that good little girl growing up and always wanted to do right, and I was hardwired by fairness and justice and these things. However, at the same time, I'm surrounded by women and people that I say this a lot, that I never knew what it looked like to see a person that actually loved themselves. And especially with all the females in my family, everyone was on a diet, everybody hated their bodies. And so I just, of course, as a young girl, just mimicked what I saw. I didn't know any better. And of course, with the pressures of social media, and social media didn't even exist then. It was MTV that had just come out when I was a teenager, and started watching that and looking at fashion magazines. My self-esteem and my body image just was terrible. And about 14 years old, I developed bulimia. And I didn't realize how horrific that was, but that lasted for 16 years. And at the same time, when I was 16, I started teaching step aerobics, because it gave me an opportunity to dance and work out at the same time. And that began my obsessive compulsive behavior with exercise, because I just was so terrified of being fat and all of these things, because of this unconscious psychological things that we have inside, like I'm not worthy of love if I'm not beautiful and perfect and all of these things. And I really abused myself, because I was in an industry where you had to have a perfect body. And I had this, and again, no one said it, it was my own story to myself, that if I didn't look great and have the perfect body, no one would take me seriously in my industry.
Right.
That I had to be that example for people. And so I literally was killing myself on all levels, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, trying to be something that I actually wasn't. And but on the outside, I had the facade nailed. I had nailed down wearing the mask and having everyone believe that I was happy and healthy, and and they couldn't, I was living in Beverly Hills, and I was, working 70 hours a week, working to the bone to support my lifestyle, putting myself incredibly in debt. And I was absolutely miserable. And what I realized is I had never questioned anything. Now, I had left the Mormon church when I was about 21 because I had started asking some questions that no one could answer. And I felt it kind of strange that even these people that were teaching me about my religion couldn't answer these big questions. So I decided to start to look on my own. And then I just kind of dove into lots of religions and philosophies, but never really clung to anything. I just was like, this is interesting. There's lots of other ways to think about religion and spirituality and life and where we came from and who we are and what we are. And my mind has always been interested in those things. But I was so obsessed with my obsessions of trying to be perfect and living in LA that all those things got put on the back burner. And I kind of got to the apex of my misery at about 32 years old. And it was a time when I remember it when I was something I would do on a daily basis, which is I would go to the gym and I would work out in the morning before all my classes. I would teach 20 classes a week. I was in severe physical pain, and in my 30s, but felt like I was 80 because the physical abuse I had put on my body. And then I remember driving home from work like I normally do, and I stopped at McDonald's and I stopped at the grocery store and filled my car with as much junk food as I possibly could. And I went home and I started my binge, which is basically I ate most of it in the car, shoveling food in my mouth while I was in the car. And by the way, which is really interesting, is I was married for 8 years and my husband never knew. And I was also engaged after that for 4 years, and that man never knew. It was like the dirty secret. And the things I would do to hide it from people. And it's pretty scary how well I got to be a master at hiding who I really was. And so I'm go home, and the thing that was so scary is that I couldn't actually make myself throw up. So I would drink this stuff called syrup of Epcac, which is what they give babies if they get poisoned to make them throw up. And I would drink bottles of it every day to force me to throw up. And it would make me throw up so violently that I would end up throwing up blood. But I wasn't satisfied until I would throw up blood, because that meant all the food was out and I was free of the calories and all of that. And I remember I passed out on the bathroom floor, and there was blood and throw up everywhere. And I probably woke up maybe an hour later. And just some interesting things that I started to ask some questions. I was like, is this as good as it's going to get for me? Like, is this it? Am I ever going to love myself? Am I ever going to be okay with my body? Am I going to look forward 10 years from now and still be on this bathroom floor, wishing that something was different? And I really didn't see how I could get to the other side. And, but these questions that started to stir were quite interesting. Because I knew at that moment, I was like, if my life looks like this 5 years from now, just kill me now. Like, there's no point in living. If my whole life is basically, I'm obsessed about what I look like, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
And this weird inner voice, I call it it's not a voice, but a knowing. This thing inside of me just said, Misty, sit down and pay attention. And I ignored it for a while because I didn't have time, because I was so busy. I didn't have time to. Now I know it's meditation, but I didn't know how to meditate. I just had this feeling like I needed to sit still. And so finally, one day after months of ignoring this voice, in the morning, I would sit in this chair. And the first day, of course, I could barely make it through a minute without running through my day, and I have to do this. And then I was just like, whatever. And so, but every day I decided to come back. And that time in the morning eventually turned into about 6 hours a day that I would start to meditate. But it evolved into that. But this time I started to spend in the morning, just these few minutes of just sitting with I was thinking about, what was going on in my mind. And it was a really profound transition in my life. And it culminated to a moment. I remember I was with my fiance at the time, and I was sitting across the table from him, and we were talking, and all of a sudden I don't know why I was given this beautiful gift of, I always feel like it's like the grace of something just spoke to me, and the illusion fell in a moment, like in an absolute moment, like boom, I had a complete shift in my consciousness and my awareness. And it's like, I like to say I was Neo that woke up in the Matrix. And it literally felt like that. Like when I saw the Matrix, I was like, I'm Neo. Like, I was like, oh my God.
so powerful. I can
It
relate to
was
that so much.
super powerful. And from that moment, I questioned everything. I questioned everything I had been taught. I questioned my culture. I questioned my government. I questioned my work. I questioned my thoughts. I was just questioning everything. And that's when I started to meditate for hours and hours a day. And then I realized that the work I was doing, I was good at it and I liked it. And I was naturally good at it because I was a dancer and I could do it. And I thrived at it. I was very successful at my work, but it didn't fulfill my soul. I knew there was something else. I knew it, but I knew from when I was very little, something called to me when I was very little that I was supposed to do something in this world, but I didn't know what that was or how that was gonna come about. But once the shift in awareness happened, I was also kind of called to just dance. Now that sounds funny being a dancer, but I had always just danced for other people. I was choreographing for other people. I would always dance to create routines for classes, and I was always trying to impress people and show off. And there was a moment when I was like, no, I just need to just let the music move me. And I started to allow that to happen. And I even felt stupid doing it by myself for the first few times. Like I was like, I look ridiculous, but like no one's watching. I realized I was insane.
Yeah.
And I got in touch with.
You were not alone, girl. I know. This
is the crazy thing this is why when I share it, there's so many people that can relate to what I'm talking about. But I just said, you know what, screw it, I'm doing it. And through these moments of aligning myself with my authenticity and my creativity while I was dancing, and I stopped caring what it looked like or anything. All that mattered is that it felt good and that I felt delicious while I was doing it. And it was a means of starting to heal my body and heal myself. But the coolest thing is that I would start to receive massive downloads, like inspirations, like full concepts. In a moment, I would just understand something. And that's when this method, this groove that I've created came to me. And it came to me like all of it. And literally I ran home and I started writing it down, and I literally wrote the first manual of how we teach people. And just like, I just was writing and writing. I was like, oh my God, this is magical. And it was interesting because the thing that came to me are these 5 truths that I instantly, it wasn't any longer just ideas. I actually could make it a reality. And these truths are this, and it's really simple and people can understand this. It's nothing we haven't heard before. The first is that no one cares what you look like. They actually really don't. Like, and if they do, it's seriously their problem. But that when I really started to look around and wake up and be the fly on the wall and start to witness instead of being in my head worrying about what everyone's thinking, I actually got present and just looked out. I just looked and I realized no one is actually looking.
Nobody
cares. I'm not that important. Yeah. Like, I'm not that cute. I think I'm so important and people are talking about me and it's like, no, they're not. So this became very real for me. And I was like, oh my God, I've been living my life to impress people or not to embarrass myself. And I haven't really been living my authenticity because of the fear of what other people think. So that was the first truth. The second truth is that I am a unique individual and that I should absolutely do things differently. And I should move differently. I should dance differently. I shouldn't have to be like anyone else. And the third truth was that when I do something my own authentic, creative way, it's literally impossible for me to get it wrong. And these are the truths that we teach in the method. And the fourth is no one can do it for you. And I had realized in my life that I had been waiting for someone to rescue me. I had been waiting for someone to come and make me happy and take away all my problems. I'd been waiting for someone to figure out how to make me thin, and just all of these things is that I was waiting for something outside of me. And this truth of that, Misty, no one is going to do shit for you. Like, you better stand on your own 2 feet and figure out how to make yourself happy, yourself healthy. This is your responsibility. It's your job. Stop putting that responsibility on other people. So that's the fourth truth. And then the fifth truth just kind of sums it all up, which is those 4 things are just really good ideas until you practice. And so the groove dance floor, the groove experience is an opportunity for you to put those into practice, to not care what people think about you, about learning how to dance your own way, and that there is no right or wrong way to dance. The way you dance is the right way, and that no one's going to dance for you, no one's going to do this for you, and that you can practice. So these things were really loud for me. And I just started to live my life this way. I started to live by these simple truths. And in that moment, I realized I could no longer do the job that I was doing. But I didn't know how I was going to survive. I was making a lot of money. I had a very expensive lifestyle, but I knew that I would die if I kept this job. And I was basically a slave. And I realized I had made the man that owned the company millions of dollars, and he paid me well, but I would never be him, and I would never own his company. And I started to go, what would it look like if I invested 70 hours a week on myself instead of into his business? What would be possible if I actually did that? So the very next day, not knowing how I was going to pay my bills, because I was living paycheck to paycheck, I was almost $100,000 in credit card debt. I really didn't know what I was going to do, but I walked in and I just said, thank you for the opportunity. And you've been so kind to me, but I really can't do this one more day. And he was there going, how much will it take to keep you? What do I have to do? And I'm like, I go, I'm sorry, but I actually found the thing I'm willing to die for. And I'm willing to die to live my life my way, on my time, free. I would rather eat out of a trash can than be a slave to another person or not do what I want to do every day. And I knew it in my core. And I was like, I'll lose everything. I don't care. I no longer care about my credit score. I realized that's just a made up number that someone created. That's when I started questioning. I was like, why do I care? Like, what is it? My value is this number that they're giving me, that's my worth in the monetary system. And I just was like, excuse my language, fuck it all. I don't really care. I'm done. And I quit, and I ended up having to claim bankruptcy. And I didn't care. It was like a relief. I was like, oh, I don't care anymore. I don't care. So what if I'm broke? I don't care. I'm free. And then what was interesting is these visions of this method that I created and how big it was going to be around the world started to come to me. And they were so big and they were so grand, it actually scared me. And I was like, okay, that's awesome. Thanks for the vision. But I don't see how this is possible, because I'm one person and you're showing me visions of literally this is all around the world. And that voice or that knowingness inside of me just said, trust. This is what you were born to do. You've got to just trust. And so I was like, all right, then you better show me. And I started to develop a really awesome relationship with my creator, which is I don't pray and ask for things and please give me. I just command the shit. I'm just like, you better show me what I'm supposed to do and make it so obvious, because I am back and forth. Make it so obvious there's no doubt in my mind that this is what I need to do and this is what I'm supposed to do. You just show me, because you gave me this passion for dance. You gave me this, so you better show me. And within literally a couple of days, Nike found me and signed me to a contract. And then I became a Nike elite athlete. And that's like, it just literally was like the doors just swung wide open, and I was traveling the world with Nike, and they were putting me on stages in front of thousands of people, teaching this new way of movement. So as I was teaching all my classes, I didn't quit teaching. I always kept teaching because that's my passion. I stopped doing management work, but I kept teaching. I just cut it in half because I'm like, I'm not going to abuse my body anymore. I made that decision. No more abuse. I'm done abusing myself. I'm only going to do things that I love, that feel good to me and are kind to me and don't hurt me. No more. I refuse. And so this new method of teaching, Nike loved it. And so my ability to share it with so many people, all my students, when I would share it after my workshops, they'd come up to me and they're like, Misty, you have to teach us how to do this. This is amazing. Like, we've never seen anything like this. And I go, well, I don't have a training system or anything yet, but give me your email and I'll contact you when I got something. Okay, I'll let you know. And and so I started collecting email addresses from all around the world. And during that time, I started developing the training program, and it just snowballed. But what's interesting, and anyone that's had a business, is I got to the point where I was traveling and trying to build the business at the same time, and I couldn't do both. And I got exhausted, and I got to the point where I was going to give up. I was like, I'm too tired. I can't promote it, develop it, and actually run the business at the same time. I'm not two people. And I really don't want to run the business. I'm not a business person. I'm not interested in that. And so this girl found me, and she'd been following me for quite some time. She'd been to my trainings, and she was quite good at business. And she says, I'll help you with your business. She goes, I know you need help and I'm really good at it. And so I struck a deal with her and I was like, okay, cool. I'll give you a percentage of the business if you, but within 2 years, come to find out, she had basically stolen my entire business from me. My name, my trademark, like my dancer logo, all of it. She trademarked it in her name. She registered the business in her name. She like basically swiped the whole thing out from underneath me. And then one day I woke up with the cease and desist order from an attorney that said I could no longer use the groove method, my method that was given to me by God, I could no longer use. The logo, the dancer, our logo came to me in a vision. I designed all of it. And it was like the biggest punch. It was just like, ugh. And in the same year, the man that I was with, I'd been with for 5 years, was cheating on me, and I found out about that. So in 1 year, I just got pummeled with betrayal, and I got to this point again where I was like, I don't get it. I'm like, I'm a good person, and I started feeling sorry for myself. I'm like, I didn't do that to people. Why are they doing it to me? Because I do believe in like you attract what you give out, and
yeah.
And I just got really pissed off. I got pissed off at life. I got pissed off at people. I was just like, I don't get it. I really don't get it. Like, people suck. And I got really negative and got really down for about a year and went to a really dark place. But at the same time, I was fighting to get my business back. And that was also a gift, because the person that helped me did it pro bono. And it would have cost me literally $250,000 to fight this battle. And he did it for free, because he believed, he saw what I was doing, and he knew the importance of this mission, of this dance I was doing. And he was like, I have to help you. He's like, you can't stop this. You have to keep doing this. And I go, I know, but I have to get it back. And so he got everything back for me. But by then I had already rebuilt and I had restructured. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me, was that moment. And I know everyone can say this, the hardest moments of your life are the best ones. Oh, and to sidetrack back about bulimia, because people need to know this. Within 2 weeks of me getting my groove on and just dancing and being in my body and letting myself express, after 16 years of throwing up 3 or 4 times a day, bulimia just left. It like disappeared. I just all of a sudden woke up one day and I was like, I haven't thrown up. In fact, I don't even have a desire to throw up anymore. Like, oh my God, like it went away. And so anyone out there that's struggling with these issues of bulimia, anorexia, these kinds of things, that if you need therapy, absolutely. But I didn't seek therapy. The therapy was me taking care of myself and honoring myself and respecting myself and learning to move and care for myself in a loving way. So that shifted everything. But people should know that, because I don't do that anymore. That ended about 15 years ago. But so I got my business back, and by then it shifted me, and it made me stand again on my own 2 feet and fight for what was right and stand up for myself and really do what I know I needed to do. And from that moment, it's weird to say the word God, because for me, it's like whatever created me loves me and supports me and has got my back. And I know that. And I started to go into these deep meditations of how good it feels to be surrounded by people that I can trust, and people that love what I do, and people that are devoted and dedicated to helping me grow this movement. And I literally didn't look for one person. I have the most amazing team. So my whole team, people would come to me. In fact, the first 2 girls that came to me, because the woman took also all my money. I had nothing again. I was down to zero. And this was literally only about 6 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. And the first two girls that came to me worked for me for free for the first 2 years. They're like, Misty, don't worry about it. I trust you. Don't even worry. I know I have to help you. And I know that, that we're doing the right thing. So it just kept growing. And I have a team now of 10 master trainers. I've got a core team of 4 people. I've got someone that runs all my education. I've got someone that runs the actual business, the website, and all of the customer service. And then I've got another person that runs all the social media. But that's just one business. That's just one side of it. That's the grassroots. That's the get grooved. This is where you go and have the live experience, where you can also go to retreats and seminars, and you can join us for the live experience and meet the people that do it. But then about 3 years ago, more or less, another magical thing happened. And I also know it's because of the work that I was doing by aligning myself, because I stopped thinking about things and I started going into the feeling. Like I said, how good it feels to be surrounded by people. Instead of asking for things, I'd be like, I'm an irresistible magnet for wealth and abundance and all of these things. And I really would sit with the feeling of it, and I could feel it just coming to me like, ah! And I generate that energy. But about 3 years ago, well, way back, when I first started grooving, when I was with Nike, these two gentlemen found me. They were infomercial producers. Mm-hmm. And they found it at the same time. And I was like, oh, Nike infomercial, everybody wants it. Yeah, you know. And they said, you know, we see what you're doing and we really like it. We'd like to know if we could try and do an infomercial with this groove. And I said, sure, let's go for it. And so they moved out of their company independently because they knew the company they were working for probably wouldn't want to do it because it's a hard product to market. Yeah. And we filmed it. They invested their own personal money, pulled in favors. We filmed my first video, which you've probably seen. It's called Delicious Dance. Yeah. And that was filmed about 9 years ago, and 8-9 years ago. And they tried every year. They just tried everything they could to market this product, and they couldn't do it. They tried little tests of their own little infomercials and buying airtime on TV and testing it on Facebook and all this stuff, and nothing. And then finally 3 years ago, they go like this. They called me and they said, Misty, you might want to be sitting down. And I said, why? And they said, well, you know, we haven't talked to you in a year. We fill you in every year on what's going on with your video, and just to let you know what we're trying and what's going on. Yeah. But just so you know, the last year we've been studying Facebook advertising, and we've taken some courses, and we decided that we were going to use your product to test what we've learned because we love what you do. Yeah. And I was like, okay. And they said, we did it the first day. We started with $25. You don't even want to know what that turned into. And they said, we thought it was a fluke. So we did it again, and we did it again. And they're like, what's your bank account? Because we need to wire you some money. And I was like, what? And then the floodgates just opened, and they're like, Misty, they're like, and I knew it was the time. And this is what I finally realized after doing this on my own pretty much for almost 10 years, and people loving it, but not really getting it. It all came together. And my product was the product of the perfect time, which is a time of all of us, especially out there, people suffering with body image, people suffering with pain, and also a disconnect from each other. Yeah. Because I also realized in fitness and wellness, and even in most things, it's not community-based. You just go, you do your workout. You don't really know the people in your class. Everyone's in a class facing the leader, trying to copy the leader. Mm-hmm. You know, you don't really, but in my experience, it changes the game. Yeah. It connects, it creates, there is no copying. Everyone's dancing with each other, and it's like a real dance party. And it creates community, and it creates connection, authentic, creative connections. And we're missing that in our lives, and it's part of being human. And we've been disconnected from the tribe, this tribal feel of community. And I didn't realize it, but that's what my method has been doing, is it's actually recreating the tribal dance party in a new, modern, fun, funky way. It's a new, modern music, but everyone coming together. You are who you are. We celebrate who you are. We celebrate your differences. We don't care what size, shape, color, fitness level. We don't care. This is a spot where everyone can come. And it doesn't matter because, you've done groove, but this method that I've developed is incredibly simple, but incredibly profound. Yeah. And there's no right foot, left foot. There's no right way to get it wrong. It's just a really simple concept that unites people in one or two movements in each song. And we dance to music from all around the world, all styles, all genres. And what happens is I, as the facilitator, I just unify everyone in one move or a rhythm pattern. Yeah. And everyone does that same thing together. So we're unified. We feel the unification of all of us in this, we're in flow together. Yeah. But then you do it your way, I do it mine. And you figure out how your body moves, and you do it with your style. And I also always invite and inspire people to use their personality and their, really let yourself come out and show off who you really are when you dance, and give yourself permission to let yourself shine when you're dancing, and really use your body the way it was built to express yourself and creatively move it. And it has been, ever since that moment that these two gentlemen called me, they've quit their jobs. They've devoted their whole lives to helping me grow this product. Now we've got, I think, 10 or 15 videos out now. Yeah. we've got an online platform, we've got an app now, the BodyGroove on demand app, where we've got, tens of thousands of people dancing with me on a daily basis. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of how it's come about, but it's been a wild ride, but an awesome ride.
Well, oh my God. So I've already taken like 5 pages of notes. I'm a note taker. But there's so much about, it's so funny when you're using the words that you're using. So 3 years ago, how One Tribe Rising came to be is I got to meet my friends, like a dear friend of mine, when I didn't know who God was in my life, or I was afraid to say the word God. I looked to my friend who passed away, Ryan, and so he became my value of light. And on his 20th death day anniversary, his cousin threw him a celebration. And on that day, I got to meet his heart recipient, Kevin. And in the heartbeat, in the first heartbeat, I asked him, I was like, can I feel his heartbeat? Can I feel your heartbeat? And in that heartbeat, I was past this vision of being up on stage and holding a microphone and having like 5 or 6 people that had these networks, and they had their audience, and we all came together in this collaboration. And I got to share Ryan's story and just these principles that this bigger vision has led me to. And I got the vision in a heartbeat. It scared the shit out of me because I just went, oh my God, like what do I do next? And then literally was given like, just take the next step. Now, 5 years prior, 6 years prior, similar story. I grew up in a lot of trauma. I had a lot of dysfunction, a lot of addiction. I was smoking, drinking, all of these things. And the idea and the concept of self-love came to me. And I was very humbled in my hypocrisy of the life that I was living. And much like you, when I decided, I didn't have to go through a lot. I just decided one decision, that I was no longer going to identify as a smoker, and I decided I was no longer a smoker. When I decided that, and I took a step in that, everything else fell away. Everything, like I was on sleeping medication, pain medication, like everything fell away, and I started receiving these downloads. And I would ask people that were expertise in these areas of like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And they're like, oh, that's Kripala yoga. Where did you learn that? And I'm like, I have no idea. I'm just being downloaded these movements. And dance was a huge part of it. Dance was a huge part of it because it disrupted all of my negative thought patterns. So if I could immediately make a dance move or move my body in some way, it got me out of my head and into my heart. And coupled with Ryan's story, it's all about the heart. So One Tribe Rising came from this bigger vision of not knowing what I was going to step into, but taking those steps. And it was all about creating that connection and creating that community and collaborating. And so it warms my heart so much to hear your process and what happened in your life, similar footsteps. Because for a long time in my life, when I was a child, I knew I had a higher calling. I knew it. And that was kind of beaten out of me. That was kind of, I was talked out of it. And I was told that it was also very egotistical, when honestly, as a child, it was the most heartfelt vision, because it wasn't coming from me and it wasn't about me. And so the last 3 years of trying to grow a business and not having, like, you see the bigger vision, but you don't know the steps that you're going to take. And you said so many things, because the practices that came out for me, it was awareness and practice and repetition. So whatever I was learning, I took that approach. First, I had to become aware of it. That's where I started questioning things. And then I had to practice it. So that's where I got over the fear, because I knew the practice would be imperfect. And then the repeating it was how you begin to master it. And all through that, every time I got caught in my head, the word just came trust. And you said something about receiving messages that are so obvious. So the message that was coming through for me was 11. and I couldn't figure out why it was 11. And then I had met a girl about a year and a half ago, and she asked me what my life path number was, and it's 11. And in these cards that I was using, trust was the number 11. When I got my cat, he's got an 11 on his back. Like everything was 11. And so, again, what I call God, my creator, it's those obvious signs that you're like, I literally will be standing there and like, thank you for making that so obvious. I couldn't miss it, because that's what happens when you start pursuing your calling and when you start pursuing your purpose. And it's not without those challenges, because those challenges in your life, like you said, when you're sitting in it and you think that those are the worst thing that could possibly happen to you, what you don't see is the year down the road, the year and a half down the road, when that's actually building a better story for you. And that takes trust. That takes trust that you don't know. It's not about your timing. It's about a higher timing. And so just listening to that story, I hope people really, I go back and listen to this. If you're listening to this for the first time, go back and listen to it again, because she literally just dropped so much knowledge and wisdom about how you can start to structure your way out of wherever you are. Because, and one of the quotes that I love the best is by Rumi, and it's step out on the way and the way appears. Because
you just have to just go.
You just go. And I do a lot of coaching right now, and I see people in that hesitation where they're just so afraid, and they let that fear. And so I work with people and getting them out of their heads and into their hearts. And dance is a huge one. Moving their body is a huge one. Like people laugh at me, but I'll just be like, shake your butt. Because there is no way that you could shake your butt and not smile. People can't even say shake your butt without smiling. And so immediately it disrupts that thought pattern, gets you into a different place. So that's so impactful, and it's so nice to see, because you've been such, you talk about attraction, and there was something I was so attracted to with your videos. There was something that I was so attracted to about the music, about how you were speaking to these other people. So your authenticity in your heart shines through. It absolutely shines through. And let me tell you, people, like, you can't fake that.
And it's so easy when you don't.
Yeah.
It's effortless. Like, making those videos was effortless, because I was just being myself. I was speaking from my heart, and I knew, that's like one of my truths. When I do it my way, I can't fail. And what's interesting, like, even it came to the point where, like, my first video I made in one day, and it's 32 tracks. I recorded one take on 32 songs. And I was in the zone, because I just knew. I go, and I even said, if I screw up, I don't care, keep filming, because I want people to see me screw up.
Yeah.
I want them to see when I flub up. I don't want these to be perfect. I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for real. I'm looking for authenticity. And so that's my motto now. Anytime when we do filming, my guys love it, because we're so efficient, because they know I don't care about the screw ups. I'm like, I want you to leave the screw ups, leave them in. Please, I want people to see that we're real, and that these are real people doing real things. We're not perfect. I'm not perfect. And I want people to see that it's effortless when you're authentic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I just started a challenge because it's kind of a new model that I'm getting into. And so I started a new challenge last week, and it's called Hearts on Fire. And my apartment is so hot in my apartment. So I had to go outside, and literally the second that I went live, everything started going wrong. And even like halfway through the video, this giant grasshopper jumps on my hat, and inside I like can't tell what it is. And I'm just hoping that it's not this giant spider. And you gotta go with it, because we spend so much time trying to control all these things, thinking that we can control our way to safety, and we can control our way out of our flubs, right? Out of like those little trip ups. And it's those little trip ups, like you're saying, that actually show people you're not presenting, you're not hiding behind this identity. And so often, especially in your industry, there's so much comparison. There's, people see, somebody like you, and if you're like, when you're wearing that mask, and, when you were wearing that mask before, you're not showing people in on the other side of it that, like, hey, I'm human and I have these issues and these problems too. But now you're showing them, like, the most valuable thing is like that imperfect action.
Well, yeah, and the thing is I realized, like, my industry, like you said, my industry, the health industry, is not healthy at all.
No.
Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. When I woke up to it, I realized everyone is chasing something.
Yeah.
And there's so much physical abuse, and there's so much, like, and the way that we inspire, like, when you see, and I realize this, and that's why I'm so adamant that even my marketing, I don't want to see little skinny ripped up people with abs and trying to inspire people with thinness or a perfect body, or lose those inches off your waist. And I told this to my guys from the very beginning. I was like, if people lose weight and they have success stories, we can use those, because that's inspiring. Mm-hmm. But we are not using this. This is not a weight loss product. I did not make this. I made this as a product of happiness, a product that helps people connect to themselves. And whatever the results are, Yeah. And what I've found is it's blowing. I've got people that are saying, I'm off my medication. Like you said, I'm off my medication. I don't have pain in my back anymore. I've lost 100 pounds. I receive literally thousands of emails every month. And the stories, like, pages and pages of people telling me how it's impacted them and what it's done to them. And so many of them, the majority ends up going, even though I've had all these physical benefits, the most important thing is I've actually started to like myself. I enjoy being in my body now. I enjoy who I am. I look at myself differently now. And that, to me, is the greatest success story I could ask for.
Well, and it just goes to show, before in your life, if people were just looking at you and seeing the outside, right? You said, I put on a very good face. You fooled a lot of people. And that, like, success without fulfillment, I think Tony Robbins says that, like, if you're successful but you're not fulfilled, like, that's the ultimate failure. And like, I love that you're taking this approach of and what I'm finding right now too is, especially with COVID, and I watch the market a lot. I'm trying to learn all this business stuff, so I'm kind of like you and just paying attention to what's going on. And one of the most amazing things to me that is so needed in the world right now is that the people that are rising, the people that are becoming most abundant, the people that are literally becoming the biggest influencers, are the people that are putting themselves in the way of their values. They're putting their business in the way of their values. It's and those truths and those principles that you built, like, you had those and then you became them. And
that comes from, like what you said, the imperfect practice. And it's just, I realized, and it became like, I would go and present in front of thousands of people, and I wouldn't even prepare. I'd see the people that were before me or after me, they've got their notes, they're practicing in their head. I'm like, that would drive me nuts. I'm like, all the practice I've done has prepared me for this moment.
Yeah.
I can't fail. If I just get out there and speak from my heart and do what happens in the moment, and I listen to the audience and I feel what's happening and what needs to be said, I can't fail.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of pressure off yourself. It's just like, just practicing, just practice speaking from your heart, and not just practice speaking from your heart, because the first thing you have to know is some people don't know what that is.
Yeah.
They haven't yet done it because they haven't yet trusted that voice or that thing.
Yeah.
And I hear a lot of times people saying, well, I don't know what it is I'm supposed to do. I don't know. But you do know.
Yeah.
You just don't trust it.
Yeah. And you
don't believe in it. Because, and like me, you can't see how you could turn it into your life, or you can't see how it would take care of you, or you can't see how it would be abundant.
Yeah.
Whether it's playing the piano or something like that, you don't see what that gift that you've been given. Mm-hmm. And someone said that it's, if you can take yourself back to between like around 4 to 10 years old, mm-hmm. and the things that you love to do, the things that just excited you and lit you up, and that's really the first indication
Yeah.
that of what you're supposed to be doing. Whether, you know, it's like I have a dear friend who's an amazing designer, and he remembers, and he's in real estate. And I'm like, what are you doing in real estate? You're a designer.
Right.
You're a freaking designer, man. And he goes, I know. I go, so talk to me. Tell me, when was the first time? He goes, what did you like when you were a little kid? He goes, I remember, yeah, all the kids were outside playing, but I would be in the house constructing things with my bricks and designing things and building these things. And I would be for hours as a 5-year-old child. And I'm like, you're still that kid.
Yeah.
Like, that's still, right? So you're doing this job, like you said, where you've got success, but you're not fulfilled.
Yeah.
You're not going to be fully fulfilled till you get to design your own things and you get to create your own things like this. And so people that are out there, it's just tune back into yourself. Yeah. And dance, which is funny. It's a great way to tune into yourself to receive those messages.
Well, and one of the things, just by learning how to dance, and kind of, you talked about meditation and sitting and sitting still and listening. One of the first practices I do, and I'd like you to do this too, is just put your hand over your heart. And the second that you put your hand over your heart, first off, your attention goes there. So your energy is going to go there. But what this does on a physiological level is it starts to flood your body with serotonin and oxytocin. So because our hearts become more, because now there's blood flowing into our hearts because we're putting attention there, this also puts us in a more vulnerable state. And in a more vulnerable state, when our bodies are in a more vulnerable state, we're not defensive and we're not in ego. So we're not in attack mode, because you don't attack when you're vulnerable. So this right here, and what's amazing and what science is starting to prove, and this is what I think you achieve in dancing, is that our heartbeats will start to sync. And that's power. Like, that is powerful. And so that is the first thing that I start with people. It's because, like you were saying, like, they don't even know how. They
don't even know how.
We're living in an egotistical world that preys on our egotistical comparisons and our egotistical behaviors, and everything else gets lost, because when we're living in our egos and we're living in our heads, we're not in our bodies. We're not.
Yeah, and you have to get into your body. And if for something that people might want to know, like if anyone goes to heartmath.com, you can actually find the science behind this actual, like, this is real. This is because they've been able to measure the because we're electromagnetic. Our whole bodies, all of our organs, everything we're all electromagnetic.
Girl, I love that you know about heart math.
Of course,
I have a heart math specialist. I love it.
Yes, no. And that the heart emits an electromagnetic field 5,000 times greater than your thoughts, your brain. So this is your power. This is your powerhouse. And so, yes, getting yourself to connect down into your heart and actually generate. And that's why I say the feeling is the communication of the universe, not your thinking. This is like level 1 subs, you can think yourself into oblivion, but that's not creation. What's creation is the feeling of it. And that's why I say, like, I finally figured that out especially when I manifested the abundance of my second business, was I started to really sit with the feeling of what it feels like to feel abundant. Doesn't matter what it looks like on the outside. I'm like, I'm not going to define it. I'm not going to say, give me $50,000 or do this or do this. No, I want to feel the feelings of abundance, of having all that I need when I need it, and what it feels like. And then literally within 3 days, I got the phone call.
I love
That's how fast
it
it works.
And you guys, she's not like, this is the thing, is like, that's something that we all have the potential and the power to do. Do you listen to Dr. Joe Dispenza at all?
Of course.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorites.
I can't wait. There's going to be a day where I get to meet that man and have him on a platform of mine, because he talks about just that, like the elevated emotion and the elevated intention. And the elevated intention and the elevated emotion is that feeling. It's not about, I see so many people getting stuck because they don't know what that vision looks like with their eyes. And it's like, it's not going to be with your eyes that you built this vision. It is going to be with your heart. Like, it is going to be with your heart. Now, when did you get into heart math?
Oh my God. I'd have to say I was introduced to it probably, God, almost 10 years ago,
Okay.
more or less, right around when I think they first started running. They may be a lot older than that, but I remember they also had some retreats here in Mexico like 8, 9 years ago.
Okay.
And I started doing research because I was really interested, because I'm all about that, like in the way that I was receiving messages and anything. Like I said, like I'm a brainiac.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing, is I'm a logical, like things have to be logical. Like I'm not just out there airy fairy, like whatever.
Right.
And what I loved about them is they provided the science behind the logic, like why the heart is so much more powerful and how it actually works. And I could see it scientifically, because I'm not one of those that just someone says something and I believe it. I actually want logic. I had my awakening through my logic.
Yeah.
Like I love to learn things. I love to analyze. Like even since the COVID thing came in, I instantly stopped watching what was happening on the news because I knew it was bullshit. I knew we were being lied to. I'm like, I'm going to actually dig deeper and I'm going to find the real information that they're not giving us. Yeah. And that's how I am about everything, because I question everything. And I believe that about to everyone, like question everything. That's the Fifth Agreement. You know, the book, The Four Agreements by...
Oh, absolutely.
The Fifth Agreement, man.
I'm doing a book club on that right now. Because that's power.
It is. It's so powerful to really like, we all have such good brains. This is the thing, is that no one's brain is better than another person's brain. It's just your ability to how you're using it. Just like your heart, it's the same thing. And we are giving these amazing brains for a reason, so that we can critically think and use our logic and, you know, analyze things. And then the important thing is to drop it into your body and see how it feels in your body. You'll find the truth, because your body will tell you the truth. It'll tell you if you're being lied to and if you're not being lied to, and learning to actually tune into that. And so that's how I am now, especially with what's going on in the world. I am very careful to tune into my body to find the truth, to find out where the truth actually lies. Yeah. Right? Because there's so much misinformation and there's so much stuff going on that it's just like, you know what? What does my body tell me? Because my body doesn't lie, and your body doesn't lie. Nobody's body lies. Like, and you know it, because your body goes strong with the truth and it goes weak when it's not. And you know what strong feels like. You know what a yes feels like, and you know what a no feels like. And learning how to tune into the yes and the no, and to trust yourself. And that's another element that people struggle with. Not just finding their dharma and their path and their vision, but learning to trust themselves. Yeah. That's a huge step, is trusting yourself. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and when I walk people through, when I'm just starting with somebody, the first, you know, I was told number 1 is self-love. Number 2, in the form of an 11, came with trust. And then number 3 came with the commitment. And the commitment was the willingness to practice, the willingness to show up, the willingness to not be perfect, the willingness to take, you know, not ever give up on taking action. Like those are the 3 main like values that I talk about right away, because so many people want to jump to they want to jump to the strategy. They want to jump to the implementation. And if they don't have the foundation on which they're building, they're going to get to that place of, they could even possibly get to that place of success, but it's going to be without fulfillment.
Yeah.
And that's the danger of how much knowledge and how many people's opinions and the access of which we have all this instant information. That's the danger of it. And a lot of people get caught up in that. So I also love the fact that you're also teaching this just through dance, this body intuition and this body trust, because that is so important. So important.
Well, yeah. And people have to realize that. And it's so funny, because when it comes to dance, I hear so many excuses about not dancing. I'm not a good dancer. I'm not coordinated. I'm like, not, and it's all bullshit. Yeah. It's because you're afraid of what it's going to look like. You're afraid of looking stupid. That's all it boils down to. Yeah. And you have to go back to that first truth. No one actually cares. No one's looking at you. Yeah. You're not that cute. No one, like, really seriously, you're not that important in their life. Right. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, but it goes back even further than this, is that everyone is a dancer, because, and there's a truth to this, I'll prove it. Put music on with the baby and see what happens. No one has to teach them. No one's been taught how to dance. The problem is people think they have to learn how to dance. No, you don't. Your body knows how to dance. It is innate. It is our birthright. We actually dance before we walk. Walking comes later.
You're
Because
right.
I've seen little babies bouncing in their seat and dancing, you know, the body, and that is the truth. And people, that's part of what I do with Groove, is to help reconnect people back to that truth, that if you trust yourself and you just do it your way and you let yourself, it's the right way. And it should look different. You should never look like another person. Like, give yourself permission to be your own authentic, unique self, and let your body do it the way it wants to do it, and trust it. And the more you flex that, that's what I mean. Dance is an opportunity to flex that muscle of trusting yourself, flexing that muscle of self-care and tuning into the body. And I'm telling you, the moment you start aligning yourself with your creativity and your authenticity, because creativity is the force of the universe. It's what makes everything. The creative force of the universe. And when you're tapped into your creative force, you are in alignment. You're in atonement with that created you.
Yeah.
And when you're in there, oh my God, you have access to like
everything.
Because it's different. And it's everything, because it's really different for, because it's one thing to meditate, because I can do it while I'm meditating, but I'm not being creative when I meditate. I'm not tuning into my creativity. I'm just tuning in to the energy in the field and all of this. And that's beautiful. And that helps me a lot. But dance and moving meditation, where you actually now are creative and you're actually utilizing your creative energy. Oh my God. It's a whole other place.
Absolutely. Well, do you know who Brene Brown is?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so she said something that just resonated so much with me, and when I'm looking for, so much of what we see in the world, we call like root causes, and they're just symptoms. When you're saying there's so many excuses, those are just symptoms. The root cause is our fear. The root cause is that we don't believe that we're worthy. And what she says is that unused creativity is not benign. And I'm like, whoa. That is where our sickness is coming from. It's unused creativity in our bodies, in our life, when we're not literally giving ourselves permission to answer that higher calling. If there are people that believe that it's not a real thing, and for a long time, that's what I believed. I believed everybody else's opinion about my higher calling is that I was just being conceited. I was just trying to be special, or just trying to stand out, and I was like, no, like I feel this. And when I got woke up, it was like, here's your vision, go gather the people. I still, like, if I trip up, or if I'm having a really hard time, that voice will still come through. And it's just like, when I think it's too big for me, or I'm feeling frustrated, it all comes back down to that voice that's like, nope, you just keep gathering the people, keep gathering the people. And then when I stop and pause in that and let that just resonate through me, then I already know my next step. Then I'm already right there going, okay, and just, again, getting out of that ego space and just coming back to the heart, and then just taking that very next step.
Yeah. And getting to the point where, like I am now, which is wild, and people might have a hard time digesting this, but I used to be one of those to-do list person and trying to set goals and, really structure and all of this. And there's people that, that say that structure is the key to success and all of these things, or freedom. Structure is the key to freedom. I struggle with that because I'm so tapped into my creativity. That's all like this, and I have 2 global businesses. 2 things. I don't do a to-do list. I don't have a to-do list, and I don't set goals at all. Every day, I just tune in and I go, what am I supposed to do today?
I love that.
What am I supposed to, and I trust my vision. So instead of setting goals, I trust my vision.
Yeah.
Because I always failed at my goals. I always felt bad about myself because I'd never accomplished my goals. Yeah. And I always fell short, and I made me feel bad about myself. So I said, you know what? No more goals. I'm just going to trust that vision, that big picture. I'm going to trust that. And the more I trust it, the bigger it gets, and the more successful I become, and the more I'm like, and the more effortless it is. Yeah. It's like, whoa. And now that vision I had 10 years ago of this huge thing all around the world, now it's literally like every day I have to pinch myself that this is my life. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this is what it actually, now I'm actually living what I envisioned 10 years ago. And I'm like, it's even better than the vision. Like, it's heaven. And I just know I'm just getting started.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and when you hold on to your vision, you know, our minds can only comprehend so much. And you just nailed it. Like, what happens with that vision is better than we ever could have even dreamed. So be willing to receive that, right? Because we tend to think like, oh, it has to be this way or it has to be that way. And like your challenges that you had, like through your challenges, you gained different and better stories to build a bigger vision. And it's not like you would have stood up and said, hey, I choose to have this woman totally betray me, and I choose to have this relationship totally betray me. But you powered through it because you trusted. Like, I love that. Like, that is such power.
Yeah, and it's that thing of nothing happens to you, it happens for you. And really changing the language. And now it's easier for me to get that. Now whenever anything happens in my life, now I'm like, show me what this, okay, show me what.
Right.
Instead of now mulling in it and having all the, you know, I just go right to like, okay, this is for me, so show me what this is for.
I love that.
You know? And also to like the command of the universe, like the way that I communicate, like, is this with this vision. I've been blown away by how magically it's all come about. I could have never dreamt up how it was all going to develop and how the magical pieces are all going to come together. I couldn't have made that up. I couldn't even have thought that up or planned it or did anything like that. And this is now my communication with the universe is I'm like, show me, make it obvious, and make it magical. Yeah. Blow my mind at how you show up and bring me everything that I need. Yeah. Just make it magical. And I love to see how magically things arrive. It's like it's sprinkled with fairy dust. I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, yeah, way to go. Like, well done. Well done, sir. Well done.
Yeah. Like, I know that I'm on the right path. And I know, especially when I'm about to have a huge breakthrough, it's when all those synchronicities start to show up. And I'm just like, follow the synchronicities, because that's where the magic is. And I don't question them anymore. I don't question like if that was really real anymore. It's just literally, I know if I follow those synchronicities, like that's the path that I'm supposed to be following. And again, it's like, I just want to look around and be like, does anybody else see the magic of what's happening right now? Because it is so magical. And I'm like, all right, just keep going, you know? So yeah. That's also the juice on the days that I don't feel like it, or when you do run into those roadblocks, you know, being able to have that power of proof that gets you through when those lessons do come. Because this, you know, nobody ever said that those lessons aren't going to happen. Those lessons show up because we need them to grow.
And it's going to take you to where you need to go.
Yeah.
And whether it's about growth or whether it's about shifting you where you actually need to be, like you're going down this way this isn't the right, so I've got to take you this way.
Yeah.
And for me, it's also sometimes it's not even learning something. It's like, I need to stop doing this. Something is taking me this way. Yeah. And I need to go this way now.
Yeah.
And so just trusting those directions and those roadblocks, like I trust the resistance. So if something I'm doing is giving me lots of resistance and I'm feeling like I have to work at it and I have to try to make it happen, I quit. I'm done. I'm done. If I have to push and force, I don't have to push and force anything. I really believe that life is going down that river and it should be like this. And you do what you're told. That doesn't mean you don't do work, but the work should feel in alignment and it should feel like it flows. And, you know, it doesn't mean you're not going to have little hiccups and stuff, but if you feel that resistance, like there's just something blocking you, maybe that's not what you should be doing, you know, or it's telling you to go another way.
I think that's super powerful too, because I see so many people trying to push their way to something. Yep. They're trying to force it. Yeah. And it's just, and I've been very blessed to have given that lesson of it's not about force and being able to step back and be so willing to give up a direction that my mind thinks is the right way, because I'm willing to be wrong to be placed in the direction that I'm supposed to be going. And that can be really scary for people. It can be really scary because our egos don't like to be wrong. They really don't. And that's not an individual thing. That is something that our ego, it's specific to our ego. And so, to accept that willingness to be like, where you're saying you hit that resistance and then saying, okay, I'm not going the right way. And then being willingness to be moved. That's so powerful. So powerful.
And to be willing to say, hey, show me the other way. Yeah. This isn't working. Show me what I'm supposed to be doing, or show me how this is supposed to happen. Am I supposed to still be working that? And again, if it helps anyone, and make it obvious, make it clear, make it obvious, and make it gentle.
Yeah.
Gentle. Be gentle on me, baby. Yeah. Be gentle on me.
I like that too. I've now begun to put the gentle in there. I used to forget that, and then I was like, wait, I'm going to specify, because I don't need a 2x4 every time in life to wake up or to be moved. Like, I'm okay with. I've learned how to feel those subtle things to know to be shifted. So gentle is good. Gentle is really good. Well, I want to be really cognizant of your time, and I appreciate you being on here with us today. So 2 things. First, tell the audience where the best way that we can help support your mission is. And then also just give the audience, you've given us so much, but especially right now with COVID, what is like your number one message right now that people can take to move forward?
Well, first thing, you can go to getgroove.com. Getgroove.com. If you want the live experience and you want to groove with other people, we have online classes like Zoom classes, stuff like that, retreats, those kinds of things. If you want to groove with me online on the app, that's bodygroove.com. Okay. And the way to support would be try it. Just try it and see how you feel. And if you like it, share it, because I truly believe that this is something that's going to help the world, because it raises your vibration. And that's really what we have to do globally. And that's kind of even with this COVID thing, that if you can dance through it, it's going to help you deal with all the emotions and all of the confusion and the yuck. Just taking some time every day to tune into yourself and move yourself and make yourself happy and generate those feel-good feelings. Like you said, those chemicals, we need that serotonin going through our bodies. We need to feel good. And at the end of the day, I genuinely believe that this is a greater thing between light and dark. And this COVID thing is just that's why everything's amplifying, from the riots to everything. It's just, everything's come in full force. This is the year of 2020 of perfect vision. So this is the year of revealing truth about what's really happening in the world and who's really running the show and what's really going on. And people think that's conspiracy theory. I say, be a conspiracy theorist. Be one. Wear that hat for a day and actually look at alternate information, because there's something much bigger. But I do know at the end of the day, the darkness will never overcome the light. And it is our jobs to stay in the light and to stay positive and know that this too shall pass. Yeah. And that we are going to come out greater and stronger and more positive. And I think that we as a global collective, those of us like you and me and the people watching this, are going to be the people creating the new world. Yeah. And that we're going to create it the way we want to. We're going to create it in a way that supports everyone, and that all lives, all humanity has value and is important and deserves food, shelter, water, and that we get to create those systems as a collective. I don't know how long that's going to take, but I just do that. I have complete faith that the light will overcome.
I have complete faith in that too. Absolutely.
I don't know how far it's going to get before we win, but we've already won.
Well, what's interesting about that is, so I just interviewed the actor that played Michael Myers in the new Halloween movies, James Jude Courtney. Him and I picked him up Ubering, and him and I got into a God-conscious conversation in like 5 minutes. And then when I found out who he played, my mouth hit the floor, and I was like, I have to talk to you. Like, I have to know you and how you can play this character and have this, you're holding both, right? He's holding both the space for that and the non-judgment of that, as well as the God conscious. And he talked about, he's got a very good friend that he talked about that knows a lot about what's going on in like the universal movement around us, and has said that before COVID and maybe even before 2020, we've been at that like apex of pressure between the light and the dark. where it was questionable who was going to win. And in 2020, we've now rounded that, and the light has won. And now the reason why we're feeling so much pressure right now and the lessons that are coming up right now is because we're starting that push, like up the yin yang, you know, we're starting that push around the corner of the infinity sign, whatever that, you know, that flow. And that's why right now it's like, now is the time to hit the gas. Like, now is the time, because we are going uphill to get that momentum going. And I was like, and he said, everything that this guy has spoken about before has been true. And I'm like, well, that's certainly what it feels like. You know, that's certainly what it feels like to me. So it just really resonated. And just to hear your side of that too, it's nice to know that other people are resonating with that same story as well. Yeah. Because I think it's the universal truth that's coming out when you're tapping into it. You know, you're connected to it and you're listening to it. I'm connected to it and listening to it. So of course we get the same truth. You know,
and we call us the silent majority. We have to be more silent because speaking out only stirs the pot, and it creates more friction and more tension. And so I've been very, very careful to speak out about it, because I even posted one post about claiming my sovereignty, and I was literally attacked by claiming my sovereignty. And I felt like, wow, we've gotten this far. So I'm going to stay out of the conversation. The most important thing I can do is sustain my own light, and be a beacon of light and connect to the light, because that's what we are. We're light beings. Yeah, we are light, and we can't deny the dark. Don't deny it. It is real. It exists, and we have darkness within us, and we have to, like you said, you can hold both. We hold both, and it becomes a choice. But you can't deny that the dark. This is what I love about this year: is all that darkness is being revealed. It's all being shown to us, who's running the show, where the darkness is. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity of the rebuild the way that we want to create it.
I agree. Radical transparency is what is rising right now, because it's what the world needs. So yeah. Well, I appreciate your time so much. Thank you so much for being on the show. And then I will make sure that in our in the podcast information, anybody that wants to be directed towards you, I'm going to set up the link so you can click right on the links and it'll be directed right to her, you guys. So thank you again so much for being on, hon.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.